Welcome to AI for Research. So we've got some great information and some resources. We've both been using AI for research, and we're here to share that with you today. I'm Katharine Hubbard.
And I'm Listharke. All right.
So real quick, we'll, for our agenda, some limitations and strengths of AI, some general research applications. We're going to cover our use cases, and then some, when you're disseminating your research, things that you need to consider and look at the different publishers and conferences and grants.
All right, so I wanted to give a little bit of background, especially for those who may not be as familiar with what AI does and how it does it. And so the first piece that I'm starting with is some general limitations of LLMs. If you're not familiar with how it works, it's important to recognize that it has no capability of understanding what's accurate, what's true, anything along the lines. It is simply a pattern prediction thing. So what it's doing in these cases is that it says, based off the information that you've given me, here's the most likely word or context of those things. And then the other really important piece about it is that the data that was used to create many of these models is the stuff openly available online. So all of the things that we said, never believe everything that you read in the internet, AI basically does. And presents it all confidently, whether it's true or not, because it doesn't have that conception of it. There's also limited world modeling. It has no understanding of context at all, any physical, social things, understanding what we really know about audiences, it doesn't get. And so it doesn't make decisions about context based off of that. Again, it's just pattern building. The knowledge that's utilized to do this is static and often lagging behind. The most recent model only goes to 2024 currently in most of these cases. And so everything that happened between 2024 and now doesn't know about it. So any current events that I'd be asking about, it's going to be like, what are you talking about? Or this is my most likely prediction based upon what you're asking for. There's no reasoning and analysis, and actually it's really terrible at anything along those lines. Again, it's not human, it doesn't do a lot of that background.
It's upsetting.
And part of that is it doesn't do mathematical calculations. It's actually really terrible about that. And there is no analytical reasoning. Again, it's just pattern prediction. So based off of everything else, it's only doing that background. Because all of its data model is built off of everything on the internet, all of the things, bias, misinformation, all of that kind of systemic kind of issues are within the system. So it's not some neutral party. It has all of the little things misrepresenting bias, framing, and value distortions of information. And all of the models are black box, which means how they actually work and the data that was used to build it is proprietary information that's not shared. And it causes a lot of issues to kind of understand what is happening and reproducing information. You can put the same prompts in the same system and get something totally different every single time. So in a lot of those cases, they really recommend sharing the actual chat along with what you're utilizing. I'm going to try to do some general things to try to get this connected. It was working perfectly. And they decided not to. Yes. All right. Technological troubleshooting. Okay, so there's some other weaknesses in general. Because it's a prediction modeling system, the citations are often going to be inaccurate or even fabricated based off of a combination of other kind of citations. It's almost like a conglomeration of information. It will do overgeneralized conclusions. Those of you that have seen your students' papers, that overgeneralization, it happens a lot. This sort of circular reasoning and big statements, it happens quite frequently across everything. Overstating claims, eliding caveats. It really ignores edge cases and all those kind of little pieces, outliers that may be statistically important to consider or even qualitatively important to consider. It really only looks at the large consensus. And anything that's in those edge cases, it really ignores. And so the synthesis is often shallow, and a lot of those kind of minority data points are lost in translation. Okay, and so, okay, what is LLMs actually good for? It is remarkably good at summarization. You give it the information, you give it the kind of models to work with, and it will do good jobs at comparing things together. It will do good jobs about here's what this actually says. And so it's really nice for distilling long papers, long reports, long information, and giving you the most important key points and takeaways from those pieces. It is also really good at idea generation because it's gathering from all these different places, all the kinds of stuff in it. It will offer alternative explanations, potential variables, and kind of break down some of the fine details that maybe you didn't consider. It also, because it's across all of these different areas, brings disciplinary information that's outside of a potential silo you may be working with, so you get more perspectives outside of a particular field. It's really good at text mining and annotation. I actually really like this feature for revision practices in my classes, so I teach writing, and telling my students, hey, you can utilize this to find places where it's weaker, to annotate sentences that need work, and point out where you need individual pieces to increase the quality of your writing without it taking over your voice, without it doing all those things, because you can actually identify where those errors are. And because it is a patterning kind of LLM, it also is really good at surfacing patterns across large data sets. It will bring out recurring themes, contradictions, unexplored areas, gaps within literature, and really allow you to create a kind of agenda or outline of information across a topic. So Katharine is now going to talk about some initial use cases that can be used for research.
So my process tends to be, I start with consensus. So I start with consensus, and I think about like what's a topic that I'm like researching right now. So I'm looking at transdisciplinary. So the question I initially asked was, does the often siloed nature of university curricula limit students' abilities to develop cross-functional skills? And it comes back with an answer, yes. It doesn't always come back with kind of an answer like this, but this one came back, here's yes. It's saying 100% of the things that it looked at. So then it tells me some summaries, like how silos limit cross-functional skills. And so it gives me some statements, And if I click on this, it gives me the title, the abstract. Sometimes there's a PDF available, not always. But then I can go and I can take this and go to our university library and download the article, because everything that it's giving me are research articles. I then can also use some of the terms that I end up pulling out of here for a search just through the databases in general anyway, and I can find other papers that are related to my topic. So I go and I read the abstracts. I think we all start here anyway. Is this paper going to be relevant enough for me to download? Yes. And for somebody like me, is it relevant enough that I should print it off because I prefer a paper copy, but I also don't want to waste paper? Maybe. So there's also another tool out there. So I go get a starting point, pull some papers from here, pull some papers from the database, download them. And then I can come to Ivory Mind. So this does a great job of summarizing and different articles. So I can pick an individual article, cross-functional integration skills, our business school is delivering, and it gives me some options to begin with. So I can get an outline of it, I can ask questions, summary. It has some preloaded questions down here that come from the paper itself. So lots of different options. Ooh, we got new things since the last time I was in here. Flashcards, quizzes, presentations. So if I'm wanting to talk about this and I'm like, okay, well, is this going to fit what I'm looking for cross summary? I can just hit the summary button and it gives me this, write a comprehensive detailed summary with beautiful formatting. That's the prompt it gives. Hit enter. And so the nice thing about this is that while when I'm chatting with one article in particular, I'm looking through this and I'm like, okay, key findings. Contemporary factors support this three-dimensional model. Well, if I click on the button, it takes me to where this information is housed. And so now, instead of having to search through, I read something, saw something someplace, it actually will do that for me. I also can do a group chat. So some of these I have value of CFT, cross-functional. No. No, that's the laptop. So CFTs, cross-functional teams, is what I have named it. So when I'm importing into here, I can put a label there or I can put a label in afterwards. But I can also do a group chat. So value of cross-functional teams. And all of those documents that I've uploaded, I then can ask those questions like, what's the benefit to students? And so as it's looking through the group chat, again, it's giving me which papers it's pulling this information from and what page. This is so with consensus, I can verify that these are articles. I can go download them. Well, I've now put the articles in here. The information that it's giving me, I then can pop over to those articles and verify that that's what it's actually saying. And it cuts down that search time in trying to answer these questions. So after I verified all that and I've got this great information and I've read through it, I now have this synthesis of knowledge and I write out the dirtiest draft that you've probably ever seen. And then I throw it into Gemini, which is my preferred form. And I do pay for Gemini so that I can turn off the feature so that it's not learning. The only data that exists in there is what I've saved in there, and I delete my chats after I've talked with it, because data breaches, when you have it on that closed system, it is your biggest thing to worry about. So I throw my dirty draft in, and I'm like, how can I improve this for academic writing? And it helps me with copy editing and making things just sound a lot better than that first draft. Again, I go through, read it, verify it, make sure that the citations are still what I want it to be, that it's my voice. I still do a lot of changing after that to make it be my writing. And it cuts down that literature review process quite a bit.
Do you pay for consensus or other ones?
So consensus I do not pay for, and consensus has, there's this quick search, a pro and a deep. And so I've got like 15 deep searches left. Often I'm on quick, and I get enough on the free version with that quick that I don't need to pay for it. Versus if I wanted to do a lot more of that deep, then I would end up paying for it. Ivory Mind does have a very limited number of papers that you can upload, and since it's been such a resource for me in quickly finding some of the information that I want, and again, that group chat, I can put in 20 papers and ask it questions about those papers, and it summarizes it. That one I have paid for the upgrade on.
I was just reading that when we cite AI, it wants you maybe to link to the conversation you had with the chatbot. But I hear what you're saying about like those data breaches and problems. Is there any conversation about that or what we can do about it?
For
Just
citations?
like, for citations, and we've heard any buzz in the industry about what people are doing to protect their confidentiality, their privacy, but still allow people to see the prompts.
You can have limited sharing with that link and kind of choose that access. Anyone with a link generally can access that information, but what this allows people to do, just like we would do with the citation or anything, is actually see where we're getting that information from, because they can't just put that prompt back in and get the same information. So that's why both MLA, APA, and many of the other kind of styles are encouraging the link to that conversation. Yeah.
Sorry, some of these like third-party sites or softwares use the major LLMs like on the back end. Do we know if iRemind uses a ChatGPT or an equivalent LLM to process this information?
I do not know about Ivory Mind, because it's not pulling stuff from everywhere. It's just pulling from what I have uploaded into it and what I've specifically asked for it to chat with.
Okay.
I don't know enough about Ivory Mind to know about it. Certain ones are more enclosed systems or have their own data models or their own algorithms that run kind of that analysis for it. I would have to do a lot more research into that particular piece.
And I know Heather's going to talk about Notebook LM. I have recent, and we'll talk about kind of with like authorship citation when we talk about like the kind of publishing and dissemination part. But I have used like Notebook LM, and you're talking about that one, right? Yes.
Yeah,
Okay. Where I put in the audio, because I do a lot of qualitative data. So I put in the audio and we'll ask questions. And again, it makes a transcript, and I can click on something that takes me to exactly what was said. So I can pull quotes for my qualitative research. And that's something that I openly disclose in my methods section.
Cool. Thank you.
So I'm going to talk about a couple of other use cases kind of separately from an actual process. So this first part is really about finding keywords and search terms to increase the amount of information that you're finding, the relevant resources that you can utilize. And there's a couple of prompt examples. This works in any general LLM that you can utilize. The first one is pretty generalized. Hey, I'm researching this. I'd like some keywords, include synonyms, technical terms, things that I can utilize to expand my literature review of what we're doing. And so what it will come back is it will give you that list of 20 or so key terms because you asked for that. Sometimes it'll be weird and be like, hey, here's 25 with those. But it's all the kind of terminology that you can utilize to find different language that other fields may utilize that's equivalent to the types of conversations and topics that you're doing. And then the other piece that you can do is, hey, can you create some Boolean search strings for this particular topic that allows deep research connections to identify gaps in literature and break down broad concepts. This gives you all of the technical Boolean strings that works really well in databases. You can take a lot of those Boolean strings and mimic them inside Dacus, as well as using things like Google Scholar and all the regular search tools. And it will bring back some stuff that you really didn't consider or maybe couldn't find in a general search of what you're doing. And it's a really nice step to find those kind of outlier key terms that maybe you weren't thinking about. And then I tend to utilize Perplexity a lot for my research processes, not just for my class materials, but for my own kind of practice. But with students in particular, I like doing this practice after I've gone through all the ethical conversations and all the backgrounds, how it works, the limitations of what they're doing, and say, okay, you have a research project on this. Get some resources, some citations for some things that you can utilize from a variety of contexts and perspectives. Particularly for my 101 in early writing, that variety of perspectives tends to be limited in their own searching. They stick to a few really close sources and really don't go outside of that. This brings them a little bit more broader piece. And in all the LLMs, original versions of ChatGPT, it was really common for it to give hallucinated articles and things. It still does that to a certain extent, but it's reduced a lot because what it will bring back is links to actual websites, to articles, to things that it's doing, and so that will link them to the actual source. Perplexity, I played a little bit with it yesterday, returns different sources than ChatGPT and that kind of thing, because many of these have partnerships with particular publishers. And so they'll pull from those publishers that they have partnerships for. The other two that I'm going to talk about heavily is Elicit and Research Rabbit. And so Elicit works a little bit similarly to Consensus and does some of the stuff that Ivory Mind does on a kind of more limited scale. But what I have done is, because these do take time, it's like 10 minutes to process these, it asks in the general thing, what are some research questions that you're exploring? And so you can take research questions that you've brainstormed and input it into the thing. So I have a presentation later this week talking about outcomes in literacy practice and focusing on those. I was like, okay, what are some general research questions that I have? I put them in there and it's like, okay, that's great. And it gives me a summary of the kind of what those research questions are targeting, an abstract of all the things that it's evaluating, and then breaks down the results into this really nice chart that talks about what kinds of topics these articles that it's analyzed has, and does that really nice summary topic-wise across it. So what I really like about Elicit is that it does an analysis of 50+ articles, determines whether they're likely to be relevant for the questions that you've asked, and then chooses the 10 most relevant ones and develops this. So it gives you a really nice summary of those 10 articles, talks about whether it has a full text or no, doesn't, and then breaks down the individual topics of what they're considering, what kinds of participants, what methodology is being utilized, and gives a really nice background summary that gets you started. Starts making connections, allows you to make those connections as you're building your ideas, as you're building your conversation. And 10 minutes of doing this kills about 15 hours of rabbit hole searching for me, or more. The other piece that I'm going to do, this is very similar to Research Rabbit. I really like the images that I got here, but I liked the Research Rabbit a little bit more because there was less limits for the free version of doing this. And I had a little bit more control about what came out. So I also did this yesterday. Awesome. Okay, so for this piece, I put in one article, this Shivner article. And that was the first one that I loaded on there. It's writing in virtual reality, one of the things that I do in my research. And from that, it generated a list of kind of potential pieces. As I'm going through the list of other potential articles, I said, you know what, I really like this Chen article and this Yang article, and so I click on them and I can add it to the map. And then it regenerates the map of other citations and other articles that these people have cited or that are citing them, and creates this little network of authors that have a conversation back and forth on that particular topic. Now, what was really nice about going through these and adding some of them is that I found another article by Chen that was really relevant, but kind of an outlier piece. No one else really cited it, but it was really important to what I was looking at, and I really liked that kind of piece of being like, hey, this is still really relevant, I like this, and I can see the actual relationships that these research articles have. From that one, I added another article, and then that one was citing my original stuff, and it created more of those networks. It was really cool for me to see those kind of pieces, and then I can go back and find those articles and have conversations with those pieces utilizing other tools and technology, other AI tools, or looking through those and seeing the abstracts and making sure that it continues to be relevant in my pieces. Okay, the other last piece that I'm going to talk about is Notebook Ellen. This is Google's piece, and I really like this, and a lot of people within my field are utilizing this to generate student resources. Based off of the readings that we have for a particular class, what kinds of things can we create? So, piece on there. So you can actually add the sources just like the other tool that she showed, Ivory Mind, and have conversations and do all of those things. Create quizzes and flashcards. But what I've seen it most used for is loading in these and creating audio file summaries. And students are more likely to do the reading if they have these audio files that give them access to it. a lot of them would much rather listen to those summaries and listen to that background than dig into it. They see it as a time saver, but we actually are able to get them content rather than just like completely skipping it. And that's not like every student, but more students than a lot of that background. It's also really nice, just like the Ivory Mind, for your own research pieces and crafting that information, giving you stuff so that you can make connections, creating reports and other things. But I really like it for the research and for the student tools with doing those.
And I want to add, like, for the students using this, I've shown this to some of my students, and I've had some of them tell me, like, yeah, I throw, like, notes or whatever into this, and it will create a podcast with, like, 2 different voices. And they're like, so I'll put my notes and things in, have it create a podcast, and listen to that. And I was having this conversation, and it was like, well, if I put my slides in there with my content and have it create a podcast, that's one more element I can share for students who find that accessible, who might feel like listening to a podcast on the content, and I don't have to sit there and make that podcast. So that's another thing that Notebook LM is being used for.
Is that closed, or if you're uploading your slides, is that then used within the system for other people?
There's some settings and choices with Notebook LM that allows you to not utilize it for data pieces. That is one piece about the Gemini Google systems where you can have that option. Perplexity also is one that doesn't utilize the input for data things. I really like and have enjoyed the kind of conversations that I have with Perplexity on the work that I've been doing through there, and that's my main dedicated one that I utilize. So Katharine's going to talk about some publisher considerations.
So considering I do use this for my research and am putting my research out there for publication, I look at what the policies on these things are. And so I don't publish in all of these big publishers, but I pulled the top 5. Springer Nature, no on authorship. They flat out say you cannot put AI down as authorship. You can't use it, none of them will let you use it for peer review. And then it kind of gets into some different things depending on the publisher. So this is one of those things that all of these publishers have pages out there and information, and all of them start with, we understand that this technology is beneficial to the research process. So they're not just cutting it off. So for example, AI-assisted copy editing, Springer Nature said no, so do not include generative editorial work and automated like content creation. So a great example of this is, I showed you my process of walking through finding all the articles and then putting them into Ivory Mind, getting summaries, typing up my very dirty draft, and getting some help with like copy editing on that. That's acceptable. But I was working with somebody who just went to ChatGPT and said, write me 3 paragraphs on this topic, give me at least 3 citations per paragraph, and then she pulled that, and I was like, okay, not how I explained that I do this at all. Of the 25 citations that we got, 2 of them were even real articles, and only one of them actually had the information that it said it had. So to go back and fact check all of that was just probably more time consuming than if I did it in an original print paper, highlighted stuff, write it. So that generative, like having those things write it for you is like a no. And then in methods, properly document in the methods section. Like I said, I have been doing with my interviews for qualitative research, going to Notebook LM, and I've done the interviews. I sat there, I worked with somebody, and we both sit in on those interviews. We kind of know what the themes are going into this, right? And we already know what that list is when we're doing our qualitative data. So I just kind of put all those audio files in there, and I'm like, hey, what are the main themes that you're pulling from this? And occasionally it's pulled out something extra that I was like, oh, we missed that when we did the interviews. For the most part, it's giving me what I already know. I was at those interviews. But then being able to find the quotes to pull to put with that when we're talking about it in our results has been super helpful. Because in the past, even if I was using technology, I'm highlighting specific quotes, giving it a tag, and maybe I'm missing something when I'm doing that. If I go to Notebook LM and I'm like, hey, I want to know what the risks of community engaged scholarship are, and it can pull out places where they specifically talked about that kind of thing, and I can find some really quick quotes. And I document that kind of stuff in my methods, as part of my methods. So with Sage, you can use you can have AI generated images that are not actual evidence. So like, kind of the examples that I was seeing of that is like, if you're talking about MRI images, you can't have AI make MRI images for you, which seems apparent to me that they have it spelled out. But otherwise, they're like, if you want to use AI to make graphs of your information, yes. That's not necessarily the case with some of the other publishers, though, when it comes to that image piece. So Sage, they say, yeah, no to, that should be quote. Assistive is yes. Generative in the copywriting part is no. So for assistive tools that make suggestions to improve or enhance work such as language, grammar, and structure, that's actually a yes. The generative tools that produce the content such as references, images, and other content that directly impacts methodology, analysis, results, and conclusions is a no. So what it's really saying is I can't put my almost fully formed paper in there and say write the conclusion for me. But I can write the conclusion and say, does this conclusion summarize this well? Where can I improve on it? The other three, again, we've got no, except if the use is part of the research design and methodology, then yes, you can use it. Some of the other ones are not quite as clear with some of that. Some of them are just like no generated images whatsoever. So Taylor and Francis is one of those, like no images can be generated with AI. So again, yes, except for actual evidence. So like if you were using MRI images, they can't be MRI images created by AI. And again, for these three, it's you need to disclose the use of AI. I don't know how that's going. Okay, you have to disclose the use of AI tools for manuscript preparation in a separate AI declaration. And so at the end of the paper, I'll put something like, use consensus to start finding papers, pulled those from the library, put them into Ivory Mind, pulled out the information, verified this. A lot of what they talk about is verifying that information. So I document all of the ways in which I use it at the end, and I get a paragraph. Coming back up here. Okay, so what I actually meant when I said no up here, like I wrote this right. Assistive technologies, so the ones that help improve language, grammar, and structure. So when I say I write a dirty version and throw it in there and have it help me improve it, I don't need to disclose that in Sage journals. But I do need to disclose if I did something like put my paper in and have it write the conclusion for me. So that's about the disclosure piece. So some places are saying even if you use it for improving language and grammar, note that. Some are saying you can use those grammar things without noting it. So even within the journals, like there's not really a form standard for what we need to disclose or how we disclose that.
It's also important to note that all 5 of these are actively utilizing publications as part of language model building. And many of us did it impromptu, without notifying the authors. They do now allow choice in those, but if you are crafting publications for any of these publishers, that's usually an extra step that you're going to have to consider as far as what you're allowing for publication within these. There's usually an extra question, do you want to or not want to? So the other piece for a lot of the dissemination of research, of course, is grants and conferences. I do grant writing, so I'm pretty familiar with a lot of these kind of backgrounds. And I looked up kind of the big 3 here. NIH, the slides actually have the link to their policy. And both of these have separate documents where they talk about what they allow and don't allow within it. NIH is a no on everything. And if they suspect that you're utilizing it, they reserve the right to kick you out of the process, not give you any more grants, all the kind of like consequential stuff with it. Part of that is when AI first came out, people were flooding with new applications, and so they also added an additional piece that there's a maximum of 6 applications per year by any one individual, and that's a lot to do with the AI and the productivity and able to handle the kind of review process. NSF does allow it. They require disclosure, and they want a documentation of how it's being utilized within the overall work. They also, all of these do not allow it in the review process. A lot of that is to respect the authors and kind of usually proprietary information, and there would be lots of problematic things with feeding this into data models with those. NEH will permit applicants to utilize it, but they require specific acknowledgement either through footnotes or marginal notations throughout the proposal. And they also declare the right to make applications ineligible based on the level of AI utilization and how it's been utilized. And they don't give a whole lot of particulars about what really meets that. So they're like, hey, you can utilize it, but just be aware, we reserve this right to kind of like keep you out. Overall, conferences, they range from prohibited to allowed. And most of these conferences or organizations that run the conferences have a site or something along the lines that's like, this is our kind of statement around AI. And that's where they usually say something along the lines of, here's what you need to declare if you're utilizing AI. Most ban generated text, images, videos, or even summaries within the kind of things that you're inputting into the application process, or even like abstracts, proceedings, all those kind of things. But they'll allow it for like revision, editing practices through those kind of pieces. The images seems to be an almost universal kind of thing across all of the keys, mostly because it's really, especially with fine details, has a really hard time generating the specifics. Numbers won't look right, scales won't look like right, and so that has big implications, like if we're working with data and numbers on how those things come out, all the ethics around statistical representations and data visualizations is one of the biggest reasons why images is almost like blanket plan. Okay, so there are some resources, the ones that we specifically talked about kind of throughout the piece. And we'll take other questions or conversation.
Are you sharing those slides with us?
I can share
Yes.
it with.
I have, if you registered, I know who you are, I will share the slides. If you are just a drop-in today, stop by and I'll grab your name and email address and make sure you get them.
Can you tell me about the YouTube channel of Terry? What's the YouTube channel for MCOM? MCOM or
Oh, gosh.
We can send that to you. We're gonna house this right now on the Uncom YouTube channel.
It's
And
gonna,
then we're gonna get a repository to put all of this great information on YouTube. But if you wanna see this again, it should be on the Uncom channel.
it's gonna be a couple of days in edit, though.
So we'll get that to you. And can we talk about the vignettes? Okay, so we are to add some so I was thinking the dentist are all now.
I know what you're talking about now, if you'd like.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So we are also, as part of our AI initiative from the College for Arts and Science, which is where these teaching professional development pieces are coming from, we will be making some short videos talking about different issues and things with AI that can also be shared. So my little story about this is how I do my research, and then somebody else did it this way, and here's all of the problems it caused, is will be the first one, but we will have on
April 2nd.
April 2nd.
And videotape yourself.
So we'll send out, I will be sending out an invite so people that might be interested in sharing those examples or stories of different places can come and talk about that, and we'll also add that to the resources that are being offered for faculty.
Are all these resources related what claims the option?
So that what you get to developing, in my case, grants or something. I guess
Notebook LM has one, it's one of the Google products. I think I remember Illicit saying that it's a closed system, that it doesn't use kind of your questions to generate other pieces. I would have to double check the other ones just to make sure.
So to get that option, you need to pay by a subscription, is that included?
I don't think Notebook LM is behind a paywall.
I want to say most of the actual large language models don't hold me to this though. I know ChatGPT, you have to be behind the paywall to make that option. I'm pretty sure Gemini, which is Google, you have to pay for that option. Then there's Claude and what's the other big one? Perplexity.
Yeah, Perplexity, as far as I know, does not utilize stuff to generate. Claude, I am almost sure does. And they might have an option behind a paywall to not. Yeah.
Versus Consensus is just pulling information from other places, and Ivory Mind, because you're uploading those things, I'm pretty positive that one is a closed system. You're just asking it questions and it's giving you those responses.
So when you get to editing, and you're gonna put in a lot of your own ideas, so what is the best option?
For the editing, I think it's definitely personal. We have through the university Copilot, which I think through the university we can.
Yeah, the university's Copilot is a closed system. It does not utilize it, and it is only located within Winthrop servers. So all of the proprietary information is protected because we have our own separate enclosed system for that piece. So in specific instances like that, I'll shift over to Copilot for a lot of that background just because it's protected.
So that would be my question. So Copilot is the only one that we have the enterprise version. All the other ones we use the commercial, personal one.
Yeah.
Is there any conversation about trying to get any of those things, the enterprise is?
I'm almost sure they are not paying for any more technology, given discussions around other things that we have been utilized that we are losing.
But one thing that I would like to share that I was, maybe some of you attended also, I know that Katharine was there. On Blackboard, we have, if you look at the three little stars on Blackboard, we have an AI component that we can utilize to generate personas, to dialogue with the students. You can generate tests. There are lots of things. And what we learned at Anthropology keeps that in a private environment. So if you're inputting your slides or something to generate a task, it's contained, it's not teaching the system.
And there are two opportunities for three opportunities, two for assessment with the Office of Online Learning. One will be a webinar, one will be in person in here. And then there is one for AI to help you all as teachers with materials and stuff too. That's an in-person one.